Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right. So I wanted to do a little more basketball talk. Had fun doing that yesterday. And I did leave a team out that I probably shouldn't have left out that I think is a obvious contender in the Western Conference, and that's the Oklahoma City Thunder. I know people who watch that video say, how did he talk about the West and not mention the team that most people think is the best team in the West right now? I just forgot about them. Literally, it wasn't even that big of a opinion as it pertains to me disagreeing with anybody who thinks they're pretty good. I think they're very good. I think they're near the top of the Western Conference, if not the best team in the West themselves, along with who I believe is Memphis and the Timberwolves are the teams that I think are the best teams in the West going into this season on paper. Of course, you got to see games play out. Injuries and things like that will tell the story. Mid-season trades shift things. There are other teams too, like the Phoenix Suns, that I think people will probably end up taking seriously before the end of the season. There's a few teams that Dallas Mavericks obviously need to be mentioned coming out of the Western Conference this season. I just wanted to come up here and clarify that I'm not down on the OKC Thunder in any way, shape, or form. I'm actually extremely high on them, just like everybody else is. I just forgot to mention them as I was breaking out teams that are contenders. So hopefully they can make enough noise this season so where that will never happen again. I think they were a team coming of age, even though they have a lot of talent and they are a playoff team. I still think there's a lot of development that needs to be done from top to bottom on their roster. Of course, bringing in Alex Caruso and bringing in Hartenstein, I think are massive for what it is that they're going to be doing. Some of the best acquisitions of the offseason, I think, were those two. When you consider a team that didn't need a whole lot, bringing in basically a whole lot. Those two players are hard-nosed players. It's not as simple as just bringing in some good pieces and role players. These are high-level role players in Hartenstein and of course AC, our guy from LA. Just a player that is going to play both sides of the floor. In AC, who's going to shoot the ball better than people think. He shoots the ball extremely well. He's going to run over OKC's crowd a lot and take some minutes away from some really young, nice players because of how well he plays. And an NBA champion, obviously, with the Lakers in the bubble. So somebody we should have never let go of. We understand that. And have wanted to get him back but couldn't get the package together with Chicago to make it happen. But Oklahoma City obviously has all the package necessary to make trades to get themselves better, and I think they did a great job in targeting Alex Caruso. And Hartenstein was somebody the Knicks needed to keep, and they didn't. It's one of the guys that I think made the Knicks go. Single-handedly, in my opinion, made them one of the best rebounding teams in the Eastern Conference. I can't say single-handedly because they do have other good offensive rebounders and defensive rebounders. A guy like Josh Hart definitely needs to be considered in that as well. But when you consider what Hartenstein did for the Knicks, you could barely put a price tag on that, really. Rebounding the ball, making plays for others, just overall being a good defensive presence as well. I think he's going to bring all of that to Oklahoma in a winning situation, and I think they're a goodest bet to come out of the West as anybody, for sure, based on what they already had in place and these two acquisitions. Don't quite know when their rookie is going to be available. They did draft a rookie that we know is extremely talented, point guard out of Serbia. But unfortunately, he's likely to be redshirted this year with an injury that he suffered early in the offseason overseas. So I don't know what the role would be for him in the future. But if he comes back in the second half of the season somehow and contributes, he just makes them that much more of a talented and potent Western Conference contender. So they have talent up and down the board, and I am not letting people think that I didn't care about them in regards to considering them. They are extremely noteworthy and should definitely be one of the first teams mentioned for Western Conference contenders. So, yeah, man, that's what I wanted to say there. I wanted to get back and clarify that. Also, I saw that Lonnie Walker signed with the Boston Celtics. And as a Laker fan, I can legitimately say it's going to be tough watching him run around and go in green this upcoming season. Lonnie only spent a year with the Lakers. I think it was a year, maybe a year and a half, something like that. A year with the Lakers, I believe it was. And a good portion of the time, he was phased out of the offense out of the rotation rather, for reasons that I just think were not valid, if I'm being honest, as a Laker fan who was following the team religiously that year that he was with the team. I covered every game, of course, on this channel. If you guys follow me, you know that. I never was in the agreements that Lonnie should have been out of rotation. I thought Lonnie had been politicked out of our rotation, to be honest with you. I thought that was a Darvin Ham thing. I really did. I thought Lonnie had shown plenty offensively, specifically, and driving at the rim, putting pressure on the rim, and the explosiveness that he provided. I thought he had shown enough to rise above some of the people in the rotation that he was behind. And so for me, him going to the Brooklyn Nets was anticlimactic. It didn't get him what he was hoping to get after having a year with the Lakers that was supposed to kind of showcase him. I think he came here with the notion that he could be showcased like Malik Monk, like several other guys who've come here for one-year deals and then gone on somewhere else. And it just didn't showcase him in a way that allowed for him to get that deal he was hoping for. And I thought that was a disservice to him because I felt he had earned that with us that year. But he ended his season on a high note because he made a very impactful impact on the playoffs, particularly in Game 4. I think it was the second round against Memphis, maybe. I don't quite remember, but I know it was a Game 4 of one of them series where we had what we called the Lonnie Walker game. He went off for a bunch of points and was really the main guy that we went to in that game in a pivotal moment in that series that ultimately helped us really win that series. So Lonnie Walker, the fourth, Game 4, Lonnie Walker, I thought it was poetic justice, and I never was okay with him leaving the team. I never was okay with him not being honored for that contribution. Us who were rooting for the Lakers that year in the playoffs, we know what Lonnie did that game. We know that was one of them things that go down in Laker lore. If we would have won the championship, obviously he would have been remembered always for that. But I think it's enough of us who were watching who will remember the Lonnie Walker game. You understand? Number 4, wearing number 4. You know, Lonnie Walker the fourth, Game 4. I just thought it was poetic justice. I thought it was really special for him. And he ended up doing a one-year deal with Brooklyn. And they weren't doing much of nothing last year. As we know, that's one of the most broken teams last year based on just bad decisions by their management. But he moves on and signs with the Boston Celtics yesterday, and he gets to be a part of a winning situation. They just come off an NBA championship. They already have a plethora of fantastic role players to go along with their basic super team. Superstars up and down the roster, basically. And, you know, Celtics fans and NBA fans are really championing this signing. I do think that there's room for people to say, okay, you're laying it on too thick. Y'all glazing the Celtics a bit much in regards to how you're describing how great Lonnie's going to be for them. But just the same, if you remember Game 4 Lonnie and you understand what he puts on the floor when he plays, the way he drives at the rim, his explosiveness, his ability to get streaky, shoot the ball and stuff like that, you understand why Celtics fans are excited. I think people, to be honest with you, just like either love or hate the Celtics, to be honest with you. So for those who like the Celtics, they tend to glaze them some. And I do think that some of that energy that's pointed at Lonnie would not have been pointed at Lonnie had he signed with the Rockets or something like that. I think some of that love that he's getting just comes from just people having love for the Celtics and all that comes with that. But ultimately, I do agree that this was a great signing for them. I do agree with this a great signing. Defensively, he's not the greatest defensive player, but you know, Lonnie was a player who came from San Antonio, coached by Popovich, had his ups and downs in his development there. But he did pick up some things from Popovich that I think he hasn't had a chance to show. He come to the Darvin Ham situation, and Darvin Ham just doesn't, you know, Darvin did whatever he did in regards to the rotations. Most of us didn't agree with. And then he goes to Brooklyn when nobody's even watching that team except for the people in Brooklyn, basically. Nobody even knows what the hell's going on there. So this is going to be an opportunity for him to take everything he learned from all those situations. And I would expect that he would get some minutes with the Celtics that could be meaningful as backup minutes. And he's going to put pressure on the rim. He's going to help them with their interior scoring. He's going to be a very explosive player. A certain dynamic that I don't know that they had on their bench very much this past year in the championship year. I don't know that they had a guy who can jump out of the gym like Lonnie can and really put pressure on the rim like they would otherwise have if Jaylen Brown played 48 minutes. You know what I mean? But off of the bench, he's going to be an excellent backup for Jaylen. He's going to be an excellent guy to put up some points, and he's already a proven playoff player. So for me, I really like Lonnie Walker. I'm sorry he plays for the Celtics as a Laker fan. I do think Celtics fans and NBA fans are laying it on a bit thick in how great the signing is. But just the same, I do believe there's a requisite amount of appreciation that should be pointed at this signing. It's a very good signing. It's not the end of the world type of signing like these Celtics fans and a lot of these NBA people are saying it is, but it is definitely something that's going to help the Celtics continue on their journey of being the best team they can be. And so, give me a second as I tie my shoes. It's going to look a little awkward here, but it's something that needs to be done. Nevertheless, I do like Lonnie Walker the fourth. I haven't forgot about Game 4 Lonnie, and it's going to be very tough watching him run around for the ops. It's going to be very tough watching that. So hopefully he gets the minutes he deserves. I think it's just a one-year deal. So I'm looking forward to Lonnie finally getting a real deal in this league. You think he's with the minutes that I think he should receive. I think he will earn that multi-year deal that he's looking for. I think he will get that. I don't believe he's an overseas guy. I do believe that Lonnie just is a victim of rotation decisions by coaches that maybe didn't believe in him for whatever reason that I couldn't figure out. So that's just how I saw it. And I think I'm trying to be as respectful as I can because I have more colorful ways of painting that out. But Lonnie caught a rough deal there. So, yeah, man. What else is going on, man? There's some things going on in the NBA that I'm interested in. Of course, there were teams in the Eastern Conference that I wanted to discuss that I think could be potentially getting better. A team like the Charlotte Hornets are a team they've been in the dumps forever. No matter how good the talent is on the team, for whatever reason, they just stuck under 40 wins every year, no matter what, it seems. You know, they got some guys at this point that I believe should, with the continuity they have of playing with one another over the last couple of years, should in theory make them a bounce forward team, I guess is what you could say. And I'm really intrigued about the idea of Brandon Miller, year 2, LaMelo Ball coming in healthy, quote unquote healthy, we'll see. The idea that they picked up Tijon Salon, who is a nice young piece that I think is going to develop very well, could potentially be a nice impact player off of the bench, even though he has a lot of development to do. His metrics and his natural ability should make him a player for them, or a nice role player. Grant Williams, who's always looking to be impactful in winning situations. Mark Williams, who a lot of people think is a fantastic center, including myself. I think he's going to be pretty good. I haven't had enough vision on him. I haven't seen enough of him to really have a educated opinion about Mark Williams. But what I can say is when he was drafted, he was somebody that a lot of people were excited about, and I don't think anything that I've heard or seen makes me feel like they should be off of his bandwagon at this point. They just got a nice team there, man. They're not bad at all. That's what I see there. So I think a Charlotte team could potentially step forward and maybe be a play-in tournament team this year. I think that is, it's one of those situations where you're just happy if they make the playoffs. You're happy if they make the play-in tournament because they're always outside of it. I personally think that a lot of that has to do with LaMelo Ball just not being healthy and them investing so much in him. It's not like I wouldn't have wanted to pay him if I were Charlotte. It's hard to get stars. He's definitely a superstar personality with superstar level game. He just has to put it all together. And I think they got a nice little culture down there that they're trying to develop. with their players. You brought back Bridges, Miles Bridges, who, of course, his character is always in question, but his game, in my opinion, is not. And he's a really complete basketball player that's extremely underrated because of people blending in the character stuff with how they assess him as a player. It's a mistake, man. He's a much better player than he's been able to show. And I think he's going to have a big year this year now that he has some stability at this point. He's been signed. He knows what his future holds. He's had some time back from the suspension. I think he's going to make an impact. Him, Grant Williams, all the guys there. Obviously, Brandon Miller, I think, is going to have to take a step forward in year 2, continue to be a killer down the stretch of basketball games, an elite scorer, which he's going to develop into, and a pretty good defensive player as well with underrated athleticism. He can really get off the ground. So I like what they're putting together. A lot of it is incumbent upon players continuing to develop. They got to get Saloon into being who he's supposed to be, because if they can turn him into something, they're really cooking. But they took a risk there, passing up on other players that were probably, I guess, more likely to help them sooner. Players like Dalton Connect, they passed on. Bub Carrington, guys like that, they passed on to bring him in. And I don't think it's a bad idea when you consider what he could turn into. But they had the 6th overall pick, so it's going to be tough. I don't think he was supposed to go 6 in most people's eyes. But nevertheless, he's still a good piece to have, a young guy that's going to fit the timeline, a development piece that has a lot of upside. And if it comes together for him, you're looking at a trio there with LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller at the very least that you could be excited about if you're Charlotte. So I'm intrigued by Charlotte this year. I don't expect nothing from Charlotte, but someday there's going to be a boost in what they are. And you're going to see that team really start to push themselves into being a real playoff team, sort of like Orlando's been doing. Knocking on the door, finally made the playoffs. Now you're looking at them and saying, oh, they can do something. I think Charlotte's going to start pushing themselves into that position very soon. So I would be optimistic about the future and somewhat excited, if I could be, for the Charlotte Hornets, if I were a fan there. So that's a team that's interesting to me. What else, man? The Eastern Conference teams, there's a lot of development that needs to be done there. That's really what it comes down to. You look up and down the East, and you just see teams that are in place now to start the rebuild. And if all of it comes together the way it's supposed to, the Eastern Conference could be a hell of a conference 3-4 years from now when everybody grows up. But as of right now, it's going to be tough. I do want to look at the Detroit Pistons because I think they added some pieces that can help them actually win basketball games for a change. When you talk about bringing in Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris, these are guys who are polarizing in this league, I will admit, because in their respective situations, they didn't necessarily leave being the most loved players there. Dallas had issues with Hardaway. His dad said a few things about leaving that situation. They were very happy to be gone from there. He didn't exactly play his best basketball this last year. They were probably a little better without him on the floor, but he's still a hell of a three-point shooter and somebody in a fresh situation I think will have a lot to prove and has already proven that he can do a lot in certain situations. Made a lot of money with the New York Knicks, a lot of money with the Dallas Mavericks. Now it's just about trying to really fit into a situation and hopefully build something that could win. So Tim Hardaway Jr. I think is a good ingredient in Detroit. And then Tobias Harris, another guy who had some very bad games with Philadelphia. He's kind of capped off in terms of his ceiling as a extremely high-level role player, good starter, but not quite an all-star, but still has enough in the tank to really contribute and ultimately, once again, could put the ball in the hoop from behind the arc. And so I look at that piece. I look at the Fontecchio piece that they picked up, a guy from Utah who wasn't getting too many minutes, but as a Laker fan, saw him play some of his best ball against us when he played for the Jazz, so I already knew he was a good piece, and I told you guys that I liked him for Detroit. Of course, the remaining young players that they've kept, Isaiah Stewart, Duren, Ivy, what's the other guy's name? Sasser. They got a lot of young players that need to develop, man. And then, of course, they picked up Ron Holland, who was a lot of people's favorite player in this particular draft, just so happened to land in Detroit. I think he's going to be extremely exciting for them. Somebody who could potentially be a fantastic two-way player. Going to have to work on his three-point shot, but is capable of hitting it, and just ultimately going to be one of their most dynamic players. And, of course, Cade Cunningham signed his $200+ million. I think it was $226 or something like that, to be their superstar going forward. So I like what Detroit has. Of course, we didn't even mention Ausar Thompson, one of my favorite rookies from last year. He's going to be recovering from the blood clot, so I don't know how ready he's going to be right away, but the future looks extremely bright defensively with him down there, so long as they find a way to keep him on the floor with shooters. I did go on record saying I think they should probably trade some non-shooters away, but bringing in Tim Hardaway Jr., bringing in Fontecchio, bringing in Tobias Harris will make it so that they have shooters on the floor in most of their rotations. Most of the rotations they have, spacing should be presentable at the very least. And that's really what's been hurting them, is the fact that they didn't have very good floor spacing and that they kept drafting non-shooters in the process. Ivy wasn't necessarily a good shooter. Thompson, not a good shooter. Even Ron Holland, not expected to be a very good shooter. So it's one of those situations where you really need what those acquisitions bring to the table. You really need them. And so for me, I like what they did because they filled the need of ultimately putting good spacing on the floor so that they can have the guys that they use the most not be so much of a problem on the basketball floor for them. Because if you don't have spacing and you got a bunch of non-shooters, you're exploiting their weaknesses and not necessarily allowing yourself to really utilize their strengths very much. You get the worst out of those players. And these are too good of players like Duren and Thompson to be negatives on the floor just because of your player or roster construction. So that's really what it comes down to me, is roster construction. And I think they really helped themselves by picking up those 4 pieces really, if you add Holland to the situation. So what I also see there is a very good trade package to get better. I don't know who would be available to them in the future, but I think that when you look at some of the pieces that they just picked up, you look at the opportunities that they now have with their young players to get better and more valuable. You see an opportunity for them to really improve through trade at some point. So I would expect them to be players if somebody becomes available. Expect the Detroit Pistons to be a team that's interested, if they're thinking like I'm thinking. So that's what I see there, man. A good young team that now has pieces in place that should complement the young players that they need to develop and showcase. And so that's really what it's ultimately about for the Detroit Pistons. They must get spacing on the floor, and I think they got it in multiple positions that should make it more diversified in regards to that roster and how they can utilize these players. So I love what I see there. I think they're going to win some games. I don't expect them to make the playoffs or nothing like that. But if any of those young kids make a jump, or if Cade Cunningham has a MVP-like season or something like that, if he shoots the type of shots he shot last year, one of the most highly collapsed upon offensive players in the entire game last year, was still able to average big points, still able to push through all of the losing to showcase himself very well. So he's one of those guys you know can hit tough shots. And because he can hit tough shots, if you give him opportunities to not be forced to take tough shots, who knows how fantastic Cade can be from here. Now, you do wonder about his ability to stay healthy. That's been my concern with Cade Cunningham. He tends to have these long-term injuries that keep him out for long periods of time. But all in all, I believe in him. I've seen enough from him last year during the losing, watching the team in their historic losing run, seeing how he was just putting together so many good looks for his team, despite the spacing being bad and the defense collapsing on him. To now it's like, okay, they got guys like Tobias and Tim should be on the floor with him. He's going to have more space to operate, and he was already doing great without space. So I don't know how many stars could thrive in or shine in the way that he did during those circumstances. And he showed himself to be somebody they should invest in. And so I would not have hesitated to pay him if I were Detroit. I don't know if I would have signed it if I was him. But looking at where they're headed, if everybody develops properly, they can go from being a very bad team to a very good team in a couple of years. So I don't think they need to make too many moves from here. They just need to be able to showcase the spacing necessary so that those guys they got don't have to hit shots in order to be successful on the basketball floor. And I think they brought that in this upcoming season. So expect for them to be a team that can probably win about 35 games, 33 games, something like that. And I think that's a great jump from where they were last year. It's one of the worst teams ever assembled, period. So I think Ron Holland is going to be great down there with a guy like Thompson, the athleticism and the ability defensively to play the perimeter. I just think that that's going to be really, really fun as they continue to develop together. So, yeah, man, don't sleep on the Pistons. They are not a team that I think is going to stay terrible for much longer. They're going to start moving up into where Charlotte is, basically. And then we'll see what happens from there. So that's a team I'm paying attention to. I like young teams, man. Some of these teams that people are saying are playoff teams, they're not as exciting to me as some of these young teams that I think are the future. I look at a team like the Utah Jazz. I took a look at their roster. If everybody turns into who they're supposed to be, Utah is going to be a OKC-like team in about 3 years. Just like OKC, because they have so many young, talented players. Houston, same thing. You look at all the stuff that Houston got, most of the stuff that Utah has is so young that people don't know is there. But, and I've said this before on camera very recently, the Utah Jazz, it really does it's about development for them. Because they've picked up so many high-level rookies over the last 3 years. Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski, Keontae George, Taylor Hendricks, Bryce Sensabaugh. You know, you're obviously talking about guys like Clarkson and Markkanen and Kessler. I mean, the team is extremely talented. They just got to get to a point where they've developed all of them together. And it's going to be hard to do that because some of these guys overlap in position. So it's going to be a real fight for guys like Hendricks and Collier and Filipowski to rise above the fray and really solidify themselves as the starters. I think they re-signed THT. That's another guy who I still think his upside is pretty damn high. He's still very young. So it's like the development process for the Utah Jazz is what it's all about. And then devising who they believe is going to be the guys going forward and who they can afford to let go of or who can slip into permanent role players for them, which I don't think it's really solidified at all at this point. You don't know who's going to be what at this point. So I would not be surprised if the Utah Jazz are the best team in the league 5 years from now without making any trades at all, because that's what it is. You get a guy like Collier. Some people thought he was going to go in the first half of the first round. He ended up going in the second half of the first round. That's a guy that could go for a triple-double in a couple years when he develops. You know, Cody Williams. He could be an all-star someday. SJ Dub's brother from OKC. He could be an all-star someday. You know, that's a really good player. Kyle Filipowski, another guy that a lot of people had in the second half of the first round. Some even higher than that. 7-footer that could shoot the ball a little bit. He was received in the second round. Like, they got first round value in the second round. Lottery talent in the back of the first round. I mean, it's just like they got so much talent in these last two drafts that it really becomes a situation where you honestly are not certain how good they're going to be. It could all crash and burn if everybody busts. You know what I mean? If everybody just doesn't live up to their expectations. Guys start thinking they Chiefs when they're not ready for that type of thing. Chemistry could really be a problem for a team like that where everybody's talented. Coming in out of college and high school, used to being the man, now got to ask to defer to other people. So it could be a little bit of a too many Chiefs type situation there. But if they all come together and develop that culture that can come from having that type of talent, you're going to see some beautiful basketball in Utah very soon. It ain't going to take too long for the Utah Jazz to start looking like they're going to be a really good team. They're going to have some bad losses. But unlike a team like Detroit, who had a lot of young talent that didn't fit, I think that the team fits. Utah's team fits. They got guys that complement one another naturally from the skill set to skill set. So I wouldn't be surprised if Utah wins 40 games this season. I don't expect them to. I don't think that they have the experience to do that. But they have the talent, the natural-born basketball talent, to do that this season. Especially with guys like Keontae George taking steps forward. Markkanen now being paid. He's settled in. He's probably going to be an all-star level player. He's still got John Collins as well, of whom I think they probably need to do something with. Walker Kessler. You know, it's a lot of talent in Utah, man. And they all fit one another. They all fit. So if anything, it'd probably be addition by subtraction to try to move on from a Collins, try to move on from a Clarkson so they can showcase the Colliers and Keontae's a bit more. Showcase Taylor Hendricks and all these guys. But these are high-level guys, man. These are high-level dudes. These are lottery picks up and down the Utah Jazz. So we talked about Houston ad nauseum over the last 2 years about how I love what they've put together. Utah is in that same boat, and Utah has plenty of picks going forward, just like your OKCs, just like your Houstons, to where it's not going to settle down. It's only going to be more high-level talent coming in. And as lucky as they've been getting value in these different spots, who knows how much of a super team this Utah team could really be when it's all said and done. It's going to be hard to keep everybody because it's hard to pay everybody in this NBA today. But at the end of the day, if they can find a way to keep all those guys together, I don't think there's a real limit to what this team could become. I don't think there's any limit, really. So I got my eye on the Utah Jazz. They're the next Houston. They're the next OKC. They got all the talent. They could very well tank some more and still get even more young talent, but I don't particularly think they need to do that. They got all the assets in the world, valuable assets at that, and look out for them, man. Look out for them. They can push their situation in whatever way they want to. They're still benefiting greatly from that Rudy Gobert trade, and they had all their own picks. They didn't mortgage anything, and they've been finding stuff, like I said, that is more valuable than the picks actually were. So Danny Ainge has been killing it for the last couple of years, and this is no exception. I think Utah is going to be better than they've ever been someday going forward. Their best days are ahead of them. And yes, that does include Karl Malone and John Stockton's era. Their best days are ahead of them. Unless they just botch it somehow, which I don't see coming, to be honest with you. So that's the type of stuff this basketball mind, NBA mind, is interested in. A lot of people want to talk about super teams and some of the existing playoff teams, how excited they are about them teams. I'm always in a different space. I'm always looking at teams like Houston and Utah and excited about them. Charlotte, I'm excited about that type of stuff. Because I just think that the game is naturally an evolutionary game. And so when you talk about teams that are flushing in nothing but state-of-the-art talent, you gotta see where they're the teams to invest in instead of some of these old school Phoenix type teams that their ceiling is now and the upside don't exist. I don't know if Phoenix is the greatest example, because I do think they picked up some nice young talent, second rounders that I think are going to be really solid, like Dunn and that center they picked up with the name U something. I don't know how to pronounce it at this moment, but they got some guys there in Phoenix. So that's not the greatest example, but I'm saying, like, super teams that have old names, you know what they can do. They've been doing it for years. I'm not as excited about those teams as I am about the up-and-coming state-of-the-art rookie field rosters of teams that have been hoarding picks and are now drafting them. So that's what I'm interested in, man. Detroit, I think these teams are going to be serious. A team I'm paying attention to in the Eastern Conference as well is the Orlando Magic. If I'm being honest with you guys, I just think the Magic are a little misguided. I've liked their idea about defense and athleticism and shot blocking and stuff like that. I really like that as a base from which to develop a team, because I think that they've done a great job of having that mindset. We're going to have shot blockers and defensive players, and we're going to get hard-nosed guys and go forward that way. I love that. Length, height, positionless, all of that's cool. The problem I have with the Orlando Magic is their guard position. The guards are good, but they just kind of keep bringing them to themselves. It's almost like they can't settle into anything with the guard position. And so you keep drafting guys and overlapping those draft picks and then letting guys leave and then bringing in more and then bringing in vets. It's like the guard situation is so misguided at this point. You got Anthony Black. You got Markelle Fultz. You got Jalen Suggs. You got Cole Anthony. You picked up Jet Howard. It's a lot going on there. I think Gary Harris is still in play. God knows who else they picked up as well. Probably some more guards too. And it's just like, yo, how many of these people are actually who you want to go forward with as a point guard? You got Anthony Black last year. You took him over some really good talent, but you don't have no path to him playing his position anytime soon because of these other guys. You got Jalen Suggs, who's ready to be one of the best lockdown defenders also, but he's a tweener guard, the 1 and the 2. You got Cole Anthony, who's shown many times that he could be a leading guard. What are y'all doing? That's my question with their guard position. I just think it's all over the place. Markelle Fultz, even though he's had his injury issues, has proven he's a productive guard. Where are the minutes? Who's sitting? When does Anthony Black get to show what he can do? He's a very big point guard who can probably guard some 4s as big as he is at times. So are you going to try to slide him over to play one of the forward positions? Problem is trying to move around in that rotation as a 4 guy or a 3 guy is their best players are at those positions. Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, their mainstays, are 4s. And then they had rumors about them being interested in bringing in D'Angelo Russell. Like, why the hell do you want D'Angelo Russell when you got all these different situations with your guard spot that are not settled? I think the most important thing in my mind for the Orlando Magic is to get out from under that guard logjam and bring themselves a guard that they're very comfortable with so that they don't have so many different people trying to vie for the same position. Because they don't really, none of these guys, and when I say none of them, I mean none of these guys at their point guard position are particularly great shooters. Cole Anthony, solid, not amazing. Jalen Suggs, profiles of somebody who could hit the 3, but not at a super efficient clip. Anthony Black's not a 3-point shooter by any stretch of the imagination. Markelle Fultz also not known for hitting the 3 very much. So it's like, you got a bunch of non-shooters. I understand why you would want a D'Angelo Russell. Jett Howard is a 2 guard. He's never going to play the point guard, so he's not really what I'm talking about. But the thing about why he's included in this conversation, of course, we're talking about double guards, the 1 and the 2, and the fact that most of these ones that I've mentioned are 2s as well. Combo guard guys, so they're both vying for both positions. They're all vying for both positions. So it's like, and you can't move none of them to the 3, even though in most situations, that's probably what you do with a Jalen Suggs. You probably move him to the 3. That's probably what you do with Anthony Black. You move him to the 3, but you can't do that when Franz and Paolo are basically the superstars of the team. And then you bring in another 3 in Tristan da Silva, who's probably also going to have issues being lost in that rotation. Then you look at their center position. They got Carter, who's really good and highly desired around the league. Teams like the Lakers and the Knicks would love to have him, but they're strangleholding him to the point where they don't want to trade him. They got Jonathan Isaac in place, who everybody loves, a fantastic defensive player, but can't stay healthy for longer than 20 games a season. Has had a lot of injury issues. Can't keep him on the floor. And these are mainstays that they refuse to trade to diversify their lineup even better. So it's like Orlando's roster construction is weird. I don't necessarily love the idea of having all these combo guards and then a front court of guys who can't necessarily stay healthy are really desired around the league, but you value them so high till you don't allow yourself opportunity to move on from them to improve. That would have been a great place for any young center. Orlando would have been. Orlando would have been a fantastic place for a good backup power forward, but because they won't let go of these injury-prone dudes who do have value, it's almost like they cap their overall roster off in regards to how the upside can be. Bunch of combo guards, 2 superstar forwards, and then ridiculous kind of center rotation that doesn't actually provide enough segue to really compete with teams that really have centers. So you go up against Philly, you're gone. You go up against Cleveland, you're gone, because you don't really have the forwards that can actually, the centers rather, that can actually keep up with those teams. So it's like the roster construction is bad. They keep on bringing themselves guards. It's bad, man. I don't like it. I don't like it. I think they're a nice team, but they need the GM in place that can kind of settle on something guard-wise. Have a little more wiggle room with that center position, forward position, backup forward position, so that Paolo And Franz can have solidified roles around him instead of guys going in and out of the lineup with all kinds of upside. In and out of the lineup, in and out of the lineup, and then being extremely thin at the center. Why do I have like 6 desirable guards and a thin center position? Is basically what I'm saying to you. After Carter, then we're looking at Goga Batazde. Like, I don't have to have that problem. All I got to do is move on for some of these damn guards. So, and then I can get myself a center that way. So I just don't like the roster construction. At the end of the day, I just think they've done a terrible job making what they have make sense and identifying what they need and what they don't at this point. Terrible job. I'll let that go by. So yeah, I don't think their upside is as high as it should be with the type of talent that they have and the type of draft picks that they've gained. Last year, they were all over the place with their draft. I don't know why the hell they took Jett Howard. I understand that he's a nice shooter, terrible defender, nice shooter. But when are you going to ever have opportunities to put him on the floor? I didn't even mention KCP. They paid KCP at the shooting guard position as if they needed a shooting guard. When you got all these combo guards that are going to need some playing time, it's bad roster construction. And they're not going to go as far as they need to go because of it. That's really what it comes down to. And so Orlando is disappointing because it's a team that's had all types of picks. Superstars come in from nowhere. That Chicago trade with Vucevic really helped them get a guy like Franz Wagner. But they don't know what the hell they're doing around those two, Paolo and Franz. They don't know what the hell they're doing. And now that we're in this apron era, you're kind of stuck to what you have. So all these bad decisions to bring in a bunch of combo guards and then furthermore bringing yourself more guards and step in front of them and stuff, it just makes for a bad roster. It's a bad roster. So I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to take some steps forward, because you really do find yourself with talented players. But the most of what you have can never be on the floor at one time. It's more of a team that can sustain lots of guard injuries. That's really what it is. You don't feel terrible because they do have depth, but it's all in one position while they're lost in other positions. So lacking rather. So Orlando, man, best they could probably do is first round, bro. First round exit. Until they fix these problems. And I don't even think they realize or identify them as problems. I think that's my brain telling them they're problems rather than them actually looking at it and seeing it that way. But they got problems, man. They got a lot of problems. The pieces can fit. You just have too many good players sitting. That's all I'm saying. That's literally what it is. You got too many good players sitting that need to be traded for guys who are likely need to be on the floor more so that your team has more balance. That's it. So that's my take on Orlando. We can talk about New York a little bit. I love what New York has, to be honest. I'm not going to sit here and downplay it. I do have some negative thoughts because that OG Anunoby contract immediately becomes one of the worst in basketball for me. And I just felt like when you have such a fantastic offseason and then you cap it off with giving a guy 30 times more than what he's expected to play as, that's like me making the greatest birthday cake and then like pouring beer all over it or something. Like, that's how I look at what the Knicks just did. You have a guy that you traded 3 picks for. He comes in and plays like 10 games. You know what I'm saying? Just like I told you he would, OG Anunoby. He looked good when he was out there, but he wasn't on the floor during playoff time when you needed him the most. You got a coach who is infamous for playing people 48 minutes a game for 82 games a year and not playing any of the bench. And you're going to pay a guy who has been injury prone his entire career, and the time that you've had him on your team, he's also missed a bunch of games with injuries. And not only do you pay him, but you pay him way more than anybody else probably would have paid him. I just hated so much that decision. I hate it so much. OG is a nice two-way player who can hit some shots, play some defense, and really be a nice connective piece. And if he's paid properly, you're in the game. I don't hate him on the floor. But him taking up as much of the cap as he's taking is malpractice, yo. It's malpractice. It's nothing short of malpractice. And that's my real take on that. Everything else they did was cool, man. But he should have got half of that. And then the other bit of that portion should have most definitely went to re-signing who we mentioned earlier from the OKC Thunder now, Hartenstein. There's no way I'm valuing OG Anunoby so much that I'm giving him all the money that I can and letting Hartenstein walk. I don't understand what kind of basketball decision that was, especially when this is a player that can't stay healthy in a rotation where the coach plays people more than anyone else. It's just a horrible decision, yo. Horrible decision. And when you bring in Mikal Bridges, he's an Iron Man who can play multiple positions. You got Josh Hart. You got all the other Villanova dudes. We know who they are. And then you got OG Anunoby getting paid the amount of two of them dudes. You ask Jalen Brunson to take a pay cut and then overpay OG Anunoby. Like, I just really, for me, I'm so sick of the Knicks not allowing themselves to be as good as they can be. Just when you think the Knicks do something good, they do something to undo everything they do. That's my problem with the Knicks, and it's been my problem with the Knicks my entire life. My entire life, I've been watching the Knicks do this stupid stuff. You trade away a whole team of youngsters for Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony was coming to your team any damn way, but you traded away an entire starting five to get this man. And then never was able to put a team around him good enough to win anything. Then they go on this joke of an era where they wanted all the best point guards and no other positions. Steve Francis, Stephon Marbury, who was it? Raymond Felton. They put so many damn point guards on the team and didn't get themselves anything else. And were literally the worst team in the world. Then they went on the Phil Jackson train, which was just a joke of the highest order. Isaiah Thomas train, a joke of the highest order. I've been watching this team pee all over good opportunities my entire life, yo. And I just am certain that they've done it again. I'm certain of it. I'm certain of it. Everything looked really good until they gave OG Anunoby a max contract for 5 years. Injury prone as all hell. Just awful, fam. And so for me, it's like, do the Knicks look good on paper? Yeah, they look good on paper. Do they look great on paper? Hell no, they don't look great on paper. Why? Because OG Anunoby is getting paid 3 players worth of money. 3 players worth of money, and you don't have a legitimate, just like the Orlando Magic, center. They're moving forward with the most injury-prone center in the league, arguably, in Mitchell Robinson. And nobody else at the center position. They're going to be playing small ball forever and have capped themselves all the way out to where they can't even get better at the center position, arguably. It's like, yo, and you let your center go to one of the best teams in the league in OKC? Like, oh, man, the Knicks. I tell you, man. And everybody's super excited about the Knicks, and I'm telling all of y'all, they look good on paper. Maybe they do what they're supposed to do and get to the finals or something like that. But I just feel like at the end of the day, they're going to probably suffer the same fate they just suffered in the last playoffs. Because they're going to be worn down because the coach keep playing all the same players over and over again for 48 minutes. The developing players on the bench aren't getting the minutes. The Pacome Dadiers and Tyler Koleks. I don't think they're going to get the minutes because this is, Thibodeau we're talking about. So what ends up happening is he runs them guys into the ground. And then when he puts the Koleks and those guys on the floor, they're not developed or ready to go because he never developed them in overplaying the other guys. And the guys he's overplaying, he run them into the ground. So it's a terrible decision to put that situation under that coach's control. Terrible decision. And I think the Knicks are out of here in the second round if they get that far. And the bad luck for the Knicks continues. And I just feel like they don't have to go that way. You don't never have to go that way. OG Anunoby does not need that contract. You could diversify so many different ways. Everything about bringing OG Anunoby in was bad from the jump. Those are picks that could have went into other more colorful circumstances to trade to get better, and his money could go into more colorful, creative circumstances to improve the roster overall. There was no reason, and will be no reason, for him to be on that contract, especially for no damn 5 years. That is the worst contract in the league, in my opinion. Absolute worst contract in the league. So, yeah, Knicks, I'm down on y'all, man. I'm high on you as it pertains to being a playoff team, a good regular season team. I do understand that the pay cut that Brunson took will ultimately allow for him to make even more money on the back end based on some specific stuff that's going on there. So that's not really a pay cut. It's just a prolonging of the inevitable of him getting big money. He'll get a lot more money in the end unless something go terribly wrong, which is always the risk. Isaiah Thomas style, things can always go wrong. But for me, I look at their roster and I say, we're asking role players to be superstars. That's what I'm saying with the Knicks. OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges to a certain extent, even though he's a star, probably be an all-star in a Knicks uniform. But at the end of the day, those are role players, fam. Jalen Brunson has stepped all the way up to being a superstar. I won't disrespect him like that. I think he's officially somebody you respect as a number 2 or a number 1. So I'm not going to disrespect him, but the rest of that team, if you really break down what it is they actually have, they have extremely good role players that come together with great continuity because most of them played together in college. And you like that. In the Eastern Conference that's weak as hell, that's great. It looks great on paper, and they could probably rise all the way if they really put it all together. But I don't see what others see, if I'm being honest. Because there's not a strong pecking order there after Jalen Brunson. Not a strong one. And I think it's going to be by committee that they operate. And I think other teams that they're going up against, as they start to develop more, some of the teams we already mentioned, some that we didn't, that have more of a superstar presence, are ultimately going to push them out the way. I really think that, man. It may not be right away, but over the next 3 years, for which all these contracts are over the duration of or more, I don't think the Knicks are going to be what people think they're going to be. I don't think so. I love Mikal Bridges because he never misses any basketball games, can help on two-way situations, known to be able to score. With the Brooklyn Nets, he proved that. So he can be an all-star. Jalen Brunson, all-star. But once you start going up against real superstars, I don't know that they actually don't just get outclassed. It's going to require that they play with so much energy as they've been known to in the past and stay healthy, for which I don't think they're the greatest bet to stay healthy, outside of Mikal Bridges, of course, the Iron Man of the league, to where I just don't see them being healthy when it matters most. That's what I see with the Knicks. They're just not going to be healthy when it matters most. You gave OG Anunoby all this money, he ain't going to be healthy when it matters most. Mitchell Robinson's definitely missing half of the season, every season. You know what I'm saying? Guys like Josh Hart, I like him, but like he's average in terms of durability. He will stay healthy, and he may have his injury issues, you know. But Brunson, same thing. As far as durability, he may stay healthy, he may not particularly on the low end of that, but I don't know, man. DiVincenzo, nice star level starter, role player. I don't know if his upside is like what they need it to be. So I just see a team of guys that, because they come together to play really hard, because their coach runs them into the ground, so they're going to be highly conditioned. It just makes for them being souped up to be more than what they are. But when you consider how he's going to wear them down over the next several years, with all these damn minutes going to the same people and underdeveloping other people because of it, I think it's going to balance out to them not making the championship, man. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't see them getting a ring with this. I don't. So that's pretty much what I got to say, man. Nice hour talking basketball. Appreciate everybody for watching BDF 44. I'm out.